Riddle me this. What do you get when an amazing cast acts out a phenomenal script that's brought to the big screen by a respected director? The answer is very simple. It's what today's episode is centered around. The latest iteration of the Batman is what To Be Continued With is all about. So let's cue up that intro and get things started. What's going on? I'm Mike, and before we dive into the latest movie about the Dark Knight, I'd like to ask for a little bit of your help. If you like what I'm doing here, please hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down, just so you can let me know what you think, but more importantly, I need you to subscribe to the channel and click on the bell for notifications. That way, whenever the newest and latest episode drops, you're on top of it. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the Batman. It stars Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, and a slew of actors that made director Matt Reeves' vision of the iconic DC character the best version to make it to the big screen. The movie is dark, and not just in tone, but also in the way that it's filmed. We are introduced to the Riddler, who is re-imaged to look like the Zodiac Killer, and is just as vicious as Jigsaw was from the Saw movies, which, if you think about it, is a far cry from Jim Carrey's rendition all those years back. Now, he takes out his first victim, who happens to be Gotham City's current mayor. And from there, we're taken on a wild ride of corruption that is intertwined with Gotham's elite and its underworld. The movie is centered around the Gotham City Renewal Fund. That is something created by Thomas Wayne to help the city. But it's been corrupted after his death by many at the top of the city, and this movie is also taking cues from a great storyline that DC Comics put out called The Long Halloween. Now here we have a Batman that's only been around for 2 years. He has a savage mean streak, and he's striking fear into those looking to do wrong in Gotham. Operating in the shadows and alongside Lieutenant Gordon, Pattinson's Batman is dead set on ridding the city of crime, but seems to be a bit consumed with his mission, which is actually something I like, because if you think about it, this is Batman's true persona. It's early in his career, and the character is full of rage and vengeance, and the real mask, which is Bruce Wayne, hasn't been created yet. Now, he's getting help from both Alfred and Gordon on figuring out the Riddler's clues. But Batman is looking for answers at a place called the Iceberg Lounge, and here's where we're introduced to the Penguin and Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. Colin Farrell plays a penguin as a straight-up gangster who is talking to Batman in a condescending way. And even though Selina is taken aback a bit by Batman himself, she's still intrigued by his mystique. Now, I can't praise the actors enough on how well they portrayed their roles, but these three really hit it out of the park with their performances. When you see the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. But now, the Riddler is actually targeting Gotham's bigwigs like the mayor, the current commissioner, the district attorney, and Bruce Wayne, since he wants to make him pay for what his father put into play all those years back. But his ultimate target is Carmine Falcone, played by the great John Turturro. Now, in a mix of movies that look like Seven and Saw, his plans go off without a hitch, and thinking about it, it's a win-win for him, since he's always a step or two ahead of Batman, and is only caught because he allows himself to actually be caught. Batman and Selina end up working together and really show how intense things get between them. But they also help the movie along by unraveling key parts of deeper aspects that are connected to the bigger narrative. Now, since this is a Batman during his early years, as I mentioned, he's full of rage, but he's also limited by his gadgets. And we also see him putting together and working throughout the first half of this movie on the Batmobile, only for it to make its debut when he goes after the Penguin a second time. And it's this amazing part of the film because it shows that this car resembles a man. It starts off in the shadows, ready to overpower and run down anything that gets in its path until it gets its target. We also see a bunch of scenes where Bruce Wayne is out and about during the day, but it's only a small portion of the film because, as I stated, this Batman is Batman 24/7. At this point, he hasn't even had a chance to separate the two personas, and he hasn't realized that the Playboy millionaire can be a vital tool in his war to protect Gotham City. But we do get glimpses of this at various points in the film. Now, I already mentioned how well this was written, and that the dark setting sets the mood for the actors to really get into things. But my honest opinion, it's not a flawless movie. The movie is actually 2 hours and 55 minutes. And there are things that do hamper this iteration just a little bit. From a personal point of view, I felt that this was a bit too long, and each time Robert Pattinson was shown outside of the Batsuit, it did highlight that he simply didn't have the physique to embody the Caped Crusader. But nonetheless, he pulled it off and did a great job. The good definitely outweighs the bad, and I'm pleased with the end result, especially since we will get to follow up with Colin Farrell's Penguin in the upcoming HBO series that continues to tell his story and his rise to power and Gotham City, front and center, along with setting up the events for future installments that are going to make their way to the big screen. Now, I will say that just like most comic book based movies, it has its fair share of Easter eggs, but I really enjoyed the real world aspects of it. The fact that the cops don't trust Batman and actually get a chance to capture him is done very well. Besides, the way he escapes, you gotta see it for yourself. Now, showing the corruption that politicians and organized crime have pulled off for years is also presented in a way that makes sense, and it's just simply great. But the way Batman starts off as a focused protector who has only one setting, and then realizing that there are other ways to get the job done, does show his growth, especially when it's us, the viewers, who start realizing this before he does. And it also highlights it since it pays off at the end when Batman comes to that conclusion himself. The fact that a lot of emotion is showcased and also moves the movie along by simple looks and body movement is done perfectly. I mean, Pattinson's stare is great. I told a friend of mine that the best and worst of this movie is the fact that there were no big, massive scenes. And listen, folks, what I mean by that is that it doesn't use or need an epic CGI hero throwdown like Marvel, because it grabs your attention and it keeps it due to the way it's written and how it's grounded. And we'll have intensity scenes come into play when the calm settles in and becomes too comfortable for folks. But due to it being such a long movie and only having a few big moments that border on the type of scenes that I'm comparing it to, it can get a bit comfortable, meaning that it could have made those scenes better just by amping up just a little bit. By now, you're also aware that we get a great Joker appearance at the end of this movie, but just like Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, it's brief and simple. But in my personal opinion, Christopher Nolan did it better by using simple playing cards as opposed to the sneak peek that we got. Now, I can't wait to see how this new iteration plays out in other installments, and the fact that HBO will be expanding on it with Batman being more of a background specter in its series is very intriguing to me. The bottom line is that this is an entertaining entry into the character, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest that you do so. Now, the next we will see of Batman will be in the upcoming Flash movie, and it will be a double dose, since both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton will be reprising their versions of the character. But I'm very pleased with Pattinson's part and how he's now being a part of the Cape and Cowl Club. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you can't do anything, the least you can do is hit that bell. Keep up with To Be Continued With. And remember, I gotta give a big shout out to my partner in crime, Bobcat the Legend, for supplying the background music that you're hearing right now. The title track is called Joie, and you can see all the information for that track in the comments. More importantly, you can see his Spotify page and his YouTube page in the description below. For now, folks, this is not the end of the Batman, but it's simply to be continued with.